Hi, my name is Abhi Vishwas, and today we'll be going over the Hungry Few, wondering whether hunger affects exam performance across students. Again, my name is Abhi Vishwas, and this is a brief overview for our business analytics class, Business 124A. Specifically, many factors influence the performance of students, but one in particular is often brushed aside. In order to understand the relationship between lunch and exam performance, we need to look at a couple of different variables, starting with nominal variables like gender, race, education, lunch, and test prep courses, and continuous variables of math, reading, and writing exam scores. Specifically, today we'll be looking over visualizations of the data, understanding racial weights and what that concept is, finding out how lunch types are important, whether test scores and racial weights and lunch types are related, looking at analysis and means and results of the test scores and standard deviations and outliers among them, looking at multivariate analysis of the data, and also fit models to understand how these variables are related. Next, we'll look at the results of all of these analyses in order to understand what the data might truly say, looking at further visualizations and potentially looking farther to future studies and figuring out eventually what it all means. So our main questions in this exam is to understand if parental factors such as race and education affect lunch needs, and therefore if those lunch needs are coupled with preparation measured by test preparation courses, whether they might have any effect on test scores. So we look to the bar chart of data on race and education shown in figure 1.1 to understand the race and ethnicity and versus the parental level in education and lunch. Basically, we're looking at how racial groups are distributed among their education types and how those racial groups and education types relate to a free and reduced lunch versus a standard lunch. Primarily, our journey looks into lunches, but many other key factors are needed. So these are very important parts of our analysis. Specifically, we're looking at how poverty and race dynamics can affect larger institutions that are supposedly equal and find out potential ways to impact this inequality. To understand these patterns, we need to look at the scores in terms of racial boundaries. So we look at the different groups and see their reading scores, their math scores, and writing scores, finding out that Group E actually has the largest amount of mean, meaning that they are statistically the highest scoring group within our racial groups. Now, when we look at this, our simple distribution bar shows that Group C has the least amount of test preparation, an indication that this accessibility to education is not found within this racial group. Now, we can look to the group of E to see how many reduced lunches they have, seeing that they have the least amount of reduced lunches and the highest amount of passing and above test average scores. Now, we can lead to see that these dispositions or situations that are occurring for Group E are not nearly as largely happening for Groups B or C. Now, we see a group C and B have similar patterns for their test scores with equal amounts or near equal amounts of scores and means. Furthermore, we look to a two-way ANOVA test of race, lunch, and test scores to understand whether p-values of significance can be found within our two main effects. Specifically, as seen in figure 2.2, race, ethnicity, lunch, and these two combined as full factorial. Next, we can see the LS means plot because we cannot see a significant amount in our probability of being greater than F in our F test. Although we see it in race and ethnicity and lunch as very close to 0, we cannot say the same about our low 0.75 comparison to a much higher score needed to prove our hypothesis. Specifically, we can look at the least squares mean plot in order to give ourselves some more analysis, as you can see on the right hand of the screen. Well, we see a relation very jarringly in favor of our hypothesis that reduced lunches or free lunches are often telling warnings of other factors. So, what are next steps? Well, we need to do more ANOVA tests. We need to do more regression tests. We need to find better data, more data. We need to understand why these patterns exist and where they can stop these patterns from existing. It really depends on how and where you look from, depending on what kind of privilege you might have, depending on what kind of access you might have, any education you might have. We need to target these crucial pain points together, such as equal opportunity found in our pantry. It's important to consider for any school official or government official how we are preparing our scholars, specifically from the lunchroom. Thank you, guys.